video. This is sort of a tip sheet for getting started writing your poems, covering the most important things that you need to know when you approach writing a poem. The first thing is that you have to see your poem as a tight little story. Okay? So you have to have a topic or a subject. It doesn't matter if it's personified. Personification, as we discussed in a previous video, is taking a non-human thing and giving it human nature, or taking an occupation and personifying it. So basically writing about the occupation and then making it first person as if you're the person in the occupation. That's a quick tip on writing personification. However, this is the list I was talking about keeping in mind when you approach to write poetry, the most important things to remember. So the first thing we said is to have a topic, have a subject. Okay, so that you're not hunting for your subject and your topic in the poem, and your poem just sounds like you're just rambling with no real purpose or meaning or something deeper to reveal to your reader. So the second thing on the list is to look at your poem as a big event. And inside that big event is little events. And those little events are called viewpoints. Okay? So you want to have these viewpoints, and these viewpoints lead up to a story. They tell a story. Now this is really significant when you are talking about a person in an environment. Usually you don't reveal anything about what the person looked like unless it reveals something about the subject of your poem. But you're going to write about a person in an environment or something that's going on in the environment, and you're going to do it through viewpoints. And every now and then you can add what is called a thinking line here or there between the viewpoints, or even interrupting the viewpoints. Now, what are viewpoints? Viewpoints is the things that you see in front of you. You may see behind you if you turn around and look, or know what's there, and above, okay, and below, and right in front of you. So those are your viewpoints. You can even have a viewpoint that's coming from diagonal from the sky. Okay, so those are viewpoints, and those viewpoints are going to be revealed in imagery. As I said when I attended the How Writers Write poetry workshop, you must have a line that is supported by an image, especially within your viewpoints. Even in your thinking lines, if you can possibly add, a hint of imagery, even if it's masked, that's just brilliant. I've done that in a few poems of mine as well. Even if your poem is very short, you still have little events inside that big event, like Emily Dickinson has. Her poems will be 3 stanzas, but she'll have little events in there. She may have 2, but the events have sound and explore the different human senses. So number 3 on the list is to use sound and imagery. Explore the various human senses. Have at least 2 senses in your poem, whether it's movement, action, like an action verb, or sight, hearing, taste, smell. So you want to have that in there. You want to make your reader feel like they're there. You just telling them and using cliches isn't going to do that. So I think I'm on number 4. Number 4 on the list is to realize that you're not going to have a masterpiece when you first write it. It's going to require some revision. So if you get frustrated when you're writing the poem, walk away from it. And in return, what you can do, if you really want a fresh start on each part of your poem, Walk away. When you feel that stillness as if another event wants to arrive in your palm, go for a walk or close your eyes and sink into your spirit and the memory of the subject and embrace the stillness that you feel around you. And do this for a minute or two. And then write on your next viewpoint, which is your next little event and your big event. So, the fifth thing you want to do is don't frustrate yourself in trying to think of your own structure or form. If you don't want to do that and you just want to have this template or this structure to your poem, where you're stress-free and you're not second-guessing yourself on the structure of your original poem, you can always go and you can look up poets, great poets' poems, or a poem you found online, and you can take off, as I said in my video, the meat and the flesh and the organs and everything, which is the imagery and sound, and you can have left, which is the skeleton of the poem. And then you can use that skeleton as your skeleton for your poem. And basically you're going to add your own meat and organs and blood and everything, which is going to be your imagery and sound and your thinking lines. So let me give you an example. If you went to take the poem, The Clarities, it's one of my favorites by Stephen Dunn, you would read the poem and then you would break it down to see where his turns come in, where his little events are happening, where he's adding his sound. Now, before I go on with this number 5 on the list, keep in mind that when you do add sound, you don't want to let your poem be weighed down with too much sound. And you want to use adjectives that reveal something more about your subject. If it doesn't, it's not worth keeping in the poem. So, or the adjectives must build up to the subject. So this is why not a lot of poems actually are written talking about what a person looked like. Unless it's really beneficial to the subject. So let's see what the skeleton is of Stephen Dunn's poem, The Clarities. The clarities at dusk, the ones, a lover pulling the shades. So we know right there that he's entered his poem with sound and an image. The clarities at dusk, a lover pulling the shades know. That's where he says. So the next one, before he turns to face the imprison of a human face, the street light. So that is the next one where you're talking about, he introduces a person in this. And so this would be another little event. Coming on the revelation of brown is the color of melancholy and melancholy. So he's using some repetition, which works too in the poem. But you got to be careful about repetition. If you use it too much, then people think that that's a repeated line, and they think that's the heartbeat of the poem. So he only does this one time in the poem, so that people don't think that that's what he's basing his heartbeat on, that that's the heartbeat of his poem. So there you have it, another viewpoint. He comes up to the mood that wants visitors but will settle for the repetition. So that's sort of like a thinking line with a little bit of view. So it's more of a philosophy. So he tends to weave philosophy at the end of his images sometime. So he goes on, he says, now he turns and sees her as she might have been. So he returns back to the guy. So he continues to mention this guy, but he opens this poem with his main character being unseen, a lover pulling the shades know. So you don't know you don't know who his character is until he gets to the next line where he says he turns to face the imprison. So he does this throughout his poem. He has these little events, and then his last stanza is his closure On the street below, traffic building up. Somewhere an alibi fusing with a wish. So his last line is actually sort of very slanted, right? So if you're not sure what slanting images are, which leads us to number 6 on my list, you can read some Emily Dickinson. You can read some of my poems. I have a poem where I start off and I say, "The secret is in the shade." So I say that. You can come up with slanted lines simply by giving a non-human thing a human behavior. Like Emily Dickinson say, "Hope is the thing with feathers." So you want to throw, if you can, a slanted line somewhere in there, just to sort of kind of bend your reader's mind a little bit. So coming up on number 6 and number 7, the important thing is to realize that you should never try to write your poem as if you're writing the first one as the perfect copy. You should, my hair is like doing what it wants to. You should actually focus just getting the imagery down. Focus in on what you're seeing and what you remember. If you're personifying and you're writing about an occupation, such I have a poem where I wrote about a baseball player. If you're writing a poem about a football player and you're personifying, you're going to actually watch a football game. I would recommend watching a football game and write down exactly what's happening, and then sort of change it to it being you and not the football player. So we have a wonderful exercise at my workshop on it's called Planting Poems Workshop, and it's at my new website. It's at Yuku, YUKU forum. So basically, we're writing poems where we imagine ourselves and the fake version of ourselves, where we write a poem where it's totally untrue about us. So this will help us to personify. So that's the last thing on the list. If you're not used to writing in sound, I would suggest you sort of go online and look up what sound is, like slipping, falling, jumping, kicking, and find words that are similar in pronunciation. If you're interested, I will upload the sound course, the sound session that was provided by Iowa University and their How Writers Write. That will be in the forum that is for our studies, which is the Flower Garden. So you can download that. I'm going to end up uploading all the resources from the How Writers Write poetry course held by Iowa University this year in 2015. And then you can just download them and study it too. They provided it for us for free. I'm providing it for you for free as a way of saying thank you for being a member. But that forum is not accessible to non-active members. So that's the benefits of sharing your poems and giving critique here at our new location. I look forward to reading your work. There's lots of other tips in the Flower Garden if you're interested. One other tip I want to keep in mind, that if you ever get stuck and you just have nothing to write about, or you just feel uninspired, you can write a found poem. And if you want to know what a found poem is, you can visit our Flower Garden this month in August, and we're going to have a video that's going to be demonstrating how to write a found poem and what it is. So I can't give everything away in 1 week. So you have to be a member to over time to get our studies and our resources. Thanks for watching, and I hope this inspires you.